Good morning. And thank you, Fran, for sharing your gift of music with us. It's greatly appreciated. Once again, good morning to all of you. My name is Kim Dyer, and I'm the Graceful Transitions Coordinator. I work for Landis at Home. As Graceful Transitions, we're a program that walks closely with residents and families, helping folks transition, whether that be through a downsize, a move, or organizing spaces. In these past 2 years of working here at Landis Homes, it has been an honor and a pleasure to work with many folks, many families, individuals, residents, in building relationships and helping them establish their homes. And I've greatly enjoyed the process. This morning, I'd like to take some time to share a few thoughts with you. Recently, I was reminded of a poem turned song written by lyricist Sevilla Durfee Martin in 1905. Inspired by a friend who was struggling with an illness, Sevilla's friend talked about her heavenly Father watching over her amidst her illness, just as he watches over each little sparrow, as noted in Matthew 29-31, which says, "Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside of the Father's care. And the very hairs on your head are all numbered. You are worth more than sparrows." Because of this interaction, Sevilla was inspired to write, "Her eyes are on the sparrow." And the song goes like this: "Why should the shadows come? Why should my heart be lonely and long for heaven and home? When Jesus is my portion, my constant friend is he. Oh, his eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches over me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. For his eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches over me." Just as the Lord cares about the sparrow, a tiny bird 5 to 7 inches in length, he cares also for you. Friends, do not despise the day of little things. Before I preface, I want to begin by being honest with you and letting you know that as I began praying about what I might share this morning, I was rolling ideas around in my head, and I was wanting to share something thought-provoking, deep, profound, big, if you will. I felt a prompting from the Lord to speak about the small things. We live in a day and in a culture when we're encouraged to embrace the big. Dream big or go home, they say. And as a culture, we love to supersize, enhance, and enlarge everything. We supersize our McDonald's value meals, our cars, our homes, our thoughts, and our dreams. And we're encouraged to embrace the idea and delight in the concept that bigger somehow means better. As Christians, however, let's not downplay the big God that we worship, the large mission that he calls us to, and the big world that he sends us into to spread the good news. Yet for all of his bigness, our God has a remarkable love for the small. The Lord sets his eye upon small things, small sparrows, small people in small places during small moments. Even he himself became small. Let us not forget that indeed, yes, the King of the universe, the Almighty, came to the world in the form of a precious baby, born in a stable in the tiny town of Bethlehem. So why do small things matter to God? God accomplishes his work through the small things. He perfects our inabilities, our brokenness, and our lack of enough to make a difference. He pours his power into our littlest and our least, our inadequacies and failures, and uses these for good. I'm reminded of the quote, "Tiny strokes fell big oaks." We serve a God who delights in the small in order to fulfill the big. For so many of us, it's easy to embrace the bigness of God and his mission, but we forget to embrace his love for the small. As people, we are enveloped in the small, unable to escape it, and we can easily become frustrated because we are big dreamers who, in this grand scheme of life, are hemmed in by our small thoughts, our small circles of influence, our small churches, small towns, and small lives. And so perhaps we need to be reminded of the prophet Zechariah's words, spoken to a people captivated with the big. Zechariah 4:10 says, "For whoever has despised the day of small things shall rejoice." In the book of Ezra, we learn about the returned exiles of Israel and the rebuilding of the temple under the leadership of Zerubbabel. In Ezra 3, we note that the young rejoiced and the old wept as a result of this building. But why the weeping? It is said that the old wept, remembering their previous temple in its great splendor. Their dreams of the kingdom, restored to its former glory, suddenly died in a day of small things, or rather, small stones that would take a long time to rebuild the temple. But what is important to remember is that foundations are laid one stone at a time, small stones. Well, I think that I can identify with the elders in their weeping, knowing that the steps that it would take to create this grand new temple. It was through a series of visions that Zechariah offers the hope of a new Jerusalem to the Israelites and reminds them to stay faithful, even in the little things, the small stones, as they wait. Zechariah reminded the people that they served a God who had big plans and who wasn't afraid to embrace the small. They served a God who had rescued his people, who would walk closely with them, and whose plans would prosper, even in the day of small things. I want to make sure that I'm clear. We know that God's mission in the world does not culminate in a day of small things, but rather great things coming to completion by a series of small things brought together. Similar to what Confucius meant when he said, "The man who moves mountains begins by carrying away small stones." In God's hands, nothing is too small or insignificant, and thus we hear the prophet Zechariah saying, "Do not despise the little things." Our big God, in his unfathomable patience, endured centuries of small moments and small things. And the Bible provides countless examples for how growth happens from the small. And this is why it is so important for us to allow the scriptures to reshape our thoughts and ideas regarding size. In Isaiah 51, we learn that God's kingdom grows from an old and barren husband and wife, Abraham and Sarah. We learn that growth happens through the parable of the mustard seed, 1 to 2 millimeters in diameter, one of the smallest seeds that grows into a mighty tree where birds nest in its branches. And growth begins in the choosing of 12 uneducated men to become apostles of Jesus who would help spread the good news. Interesting, in their 3 years of walking alongside Jesus, just like you and I, even the 12 disciples needed their ideas of big and small redefined. For them, big things meant large crowds, important people, coveted status, and masses turning their hearts to Jesus. But for Jesus, whom big things did matter, he also delighted in the small things and used their smallness to demonstrate his greatness. And he did this through examples such as 5 loaves and 2 fish when he fed the crowd of 5,000. I think about how he used a small shepherd boy with a sling and a stone to slay a giant. And what's interesting about that story, when I think about King Saul trying to outfit David with his own personal armor, it was too big for David, and thus David took it off. When I think about that encounter and how this young man David must have felt going up against this giant, sometimes I sort of imagine this funny scenario, this young hotshot teen in full confidence thinking, the target is so big, how could I possibly miss? But what is so fascinating about God's use of the small is that it illustrates firsthand the concept of the upside-down kingdom, reminding us that the values of the kingdom stand in an inverse to the values of the world. One day, we will see how small were all the world's big things, and just how big was the day of small things. And on this day, the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. So what then is big in our eyes of the Lord? What can we do when we feel small in the grand scheme of life and in the mission to which we were called as Christians? We can do small things such as pray for those around us. We can give of what we have. We can share our talents with others, just as Fran shared with us her musical abilities this morning. We can fast in secret and humble ourselves, spend time with friends and neighbors and children, offer a cup of water, a warm hug, or a listening ear, or perhaps a handwritten note that lets others know we care. I want to share a quick short story with you. And it was one of the most profound teaching moments that I was able to share with my 5-year-old daughter. That year, she had just registered for kindergarten, and we decided to go out to Dunkin' Donuts, her favorite place, to have a quick celebratory breakfast. Kindergarten's a big deal. And so as we were sitting there eating our donuts and drinking hot chocolate, I noticed that a woman at a neighboring table kept looking and watching the interaction between my daughter and I. When this woman was getting ready to leave, I saw her stand up, look at me once more, and then quickly come alongside our table, and she dropped a card on the table in front of me and then quickly slipped out the door of the Dunkin' Donuts. Intrigued, I thought, what is this? I was puzzled by this interaction. And so I opened the card, and inside I read 4 simple words. Have a great day. This small gesture made a huge impression on both my daughter and I, and it has served as a reminder that we are cared for. Someone, a stranger, cared enough to wish us a good day. What more can we do? While this one's challenging, we can wait patiently for God to move. I know that sometimes my patience is less than par, but waiting patiently for God to move is a small thing, but a great thing. And last, while not boastfully prideful, I think it's important for us not to diminish or downplay the gifts that we have and share them with others. Because when we diminish ourselves and our gifts, we also diminish the big God who lives inside of us. In the small acts such as these, it's how we will see just how small were all the world's big things, and just how big was the day of small things. Big things come only from the Spirit as he works through his small but faithful people, you and I. Our job is to see by faith all the small things that lead to the big things happening right in front of us. The day of big things is coming. Until then, do not neglect the day of small things. Amen.